Nasdaq's down about 1.5% right now. We're going to find out who's ready to buy the dip in about 13 minutes. So joining us, Peter Andersen, and his founder at Andersen Capital Management. Are you going to be one of them, Peter, storming this market at the bell, buying up tech companies, AI stocks? I know that you've told us you like.
Listen, I don't necessarily do buys on the dips. I mean, I'm more disciplined than that. So I have these buy signals and sell signals that are really in the process. So what I mainly look for are if there's any changes, factual changes in the data relating to the companies, not opinions from sell-side analysts, but whether or not we have material news. And if that's the case, then I do start to either buy or trim those names, or actually not trim, just sell them outright. So as it stands now,
I was gonna say, because I'm looking at your notes and you're scooping up Crowdstrike, right?
Oh, yes, I was just going to say, there's some new information, right?
Okay.
Massive new information with Crowdstrike. I mean, last week we saw a shocking display of how sensitive the whole market is and the whole infrastructure is. And so the reason that I'm excited about Crowdstrike, I already owned it, but we got 2 free data points. The first one is the coveted secret list of who their clients are. I mean, they couldn't hide that. So we got to see how many companies, and it was shocking, I think, to most people, are subscribers to Crowdstrike. And secondly, the error was not a failure of their product, which would have been disastrous, right?
It's like a
they
fat finger.
failed to protect, but otherwise it was just an upgrade. I shouldn't just trivialize that by saying it was just an upgrade. It was the mother of all upgrades, but I think you get my point. Those
Right.
2 observations are free data points for us, and they point to a positive motion to buy that stock.
That's pretty interesting. And yeah, it was just essentially just like a worldwide reboot, right? Like everybody just kind of had to find a way to press restart. But to your point, you know, I was kind of thinking this the other day too, is that like it kind of like highlights they are tech too big to fail in a way, you know? So I could kind of see the logic there to your point where it's like, oh, okay, wow, this has massive impact on everything. This is a pretty big company.
Yes, and you know, when we were first researching the company in the 10K, often companies disclose more details about their client base, but it was scarce in there. So I've always been wondering, you know, who are these firms that buy this kind of protection? And here we saw this in, you know, stark sunlight. I mean, I'm sure you were shocked at the range of companies that were involved in Crowdstrike, you know, from Quest, diagnostics to hotels, and that really is a compliment to their company.
Yeah. Okay, so CrowdStrike still the top cyber pick, and we can close the book on that basically, right?
I wouldn't say top. You know, I've got 3 others in there: Fortinet, CyberArk, and Palo Alto. So I am pretty much bulled up on cybersecurity because it's never ever going to go away. And now with this demonstration, this wasn't even a trip up on cyber, but you can see how impactful it is. And I would say, you know, if we were to have a massive cyber attack, it would be as devastating in some aspects. I know people are going to disagree with me on this, but when you have a nuclear attack, there's something called an EMP, electromagnetic pulse, that blacks out all your communications. So can you imagine? This is at the level of that if you had a massive cyber attack. So companies are never, ever going to stop spending on cyber protection, period.
Yeah. Didn't they use that in Ocean's 11? All right.
I have never saw that one.
All right, cool. Case well made. So sticking with the cyber trades, what about the companies that are spending to build out these big AI infrastructure projects like Alphabet and they don't have any growth yet, Peter? How do we justify their multiples at this point?
I know, and I'll tell you that I'm a big AI supporter with my holdings in NVIDIA and Supermicro, but I will tell you that one of my main sell triggers is what I would call the Great Enlightenment. In other words, is there a possibility, and your question is referring to this, is there a possibility that investors are going to say, where's the beef with all this build out? Why aren't we seeing any impactful results on our earnings and company efficiency? So the fact that you're asking that question has me somewhat concerned that we may be approaching a sell trigger for AI, because that question is now popping up in many, many outlets, and we need an answer. I cannot tell you when the exact sell moment would hit, but with more of those narratives, we're getting more suspicious, frankly, of all this CapEx and where are the results. It's not in yet, but now that the general public and investor public has started to focus on that, it is somewhat concerning.
When you say sell trigger, Peter, I think about like, is there a technical level? Is there a technical pattern event, something that tells you, okay, the momentum's turning?
Well, you'll find I'm somewhat of a different investor. I certainly do have quantitative sell triggers on many, many companies. But when you talk about artificial intelligence, I thought about this for a long time. I find that it is such a new technology, you need to expand your concepts of what a sell trigger is. And in this case, the momentum in the emotional commitment to this sector, I think, deserves a qualitative sell trigger, and that is one of them. I'll tell you, the other sell trigger, I just have two. That one and the other one is the better mousetrap theory, that if somebody were to come out of their basement and say, hey guys, we are going down the wrong path, we have a better way of emulating human brain thought, and it has nothing to do with NVIDIA chips. It's a totally different way, it's off-the-shelf equipment, etc. That would be devastating, but that is not going to happen for at least 15 Nobel Prizes. So the main trigger is, how much patience everybody has to see the build out actually produce something.
Sounds like you're trying to basically gauge when sentiment rolls over during a kind of speculative bubble period almost.
Yeah. With sentiment, most critics will say, well, you can't just invest on sentiment. And that's true because you need metrics. But in some sectors, and I do think in AI, it's more related to that, the sentiment, the support that everybody has for continuing to have faith. And I do use that word faith, that AI will actually produce results.
Now, Peter, when you've got companies like Apple that are expected to deliver big product too, what do you see when we connect this to the economy real quick? Just kind of a last thought on how this fits into the broader conversation, because we're seeing economic data still pretty soft, few weaker employment metrics, and then we expect those folks, though, to go buy a $1,000 iPhone. I'm never a big fan of Apple. I think we might have talked about that before, and I actually think that they are really falling behind, especially in the development of AI. Years ago, when Steve Jobs was at the helm, he would have never outsourced AI. He would have been too proud to do that and would have developed his own inside skunkworks. For now, I think that's a major sign that the company is actually failing to continue its earmarked, discovery in new technologies, the leader in new technologies. I think they've really fallen behind. I mean, how many lenses can you have on a new iPhone? That's usually what they're talking about now. Okay, all right. You're not an Apple, so your Apple's not at the top of your list. But we got time for one more, Peter. There is a stock that you like, medical category, right? Insulet, which is a delivery patch for insulin.
A delivery patch for insulin for diabetes, and a remarkable technology. Now you set it and forget it. You put it on your arm, it lasts there for 3 days. It has an automatic dispenser for your insulin, and it's waterproof. And once you have it on, it talks to another component that you have on your other arm, and you don't even have to inject yourself anymore. So it is a very, very innovative technology that is catching on quite rapidly and probably will be acquired by a larger player at some point.
Okay. Great stuff. Fun chat. Got through a lot there. Appreciate it. Thanks for your time, Peter.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
All right. I'm not an Apple fan, but a big Crowdstrike buyer and still looking for more evidence that there's a real rollover in AI before bailing out. Peter Andersen, founder at Andersen Capital Management.